is it the 51st state or an American protectorate, an American holiday resort. I don't take that seriously. So on one level, you could take it, here's a property developer looking at a wrecked strip of land, prime site, Mediterranean location. There's his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Apparently, I don't know whether he suggested the idea, but certainly has got something to do with this idea, and they put it forward. And of course, universally, the reaction is, this is crazy, this is mad, this can't happen. Except, and this is the point that we need to recognize, except in Israel. And there you are, you've got the Israeli prime minister who's beaming away, with Donald Trump talking about redeveloping Gaza. And apparently, again, I haven't done, deep research, but if you look at Israeli politics, basically what you've got is across the spectrum of Zionist politics in Israel. So from the far right, enthusiastic welcome. Netanyahu, Likud, I've already mentioned. But you've also got Benny Gantz. I couldn't tell you what party he is at the moment. Last time I can remember, it was blue and white. That was some time ago. But the point would be that we can go from the far right in Israel to what is called, at least in the mainstream media here, the center ground in Israeli politics, and you're getting a welcome. So I haven't looked up what the Labour Party in Israel says about this. Remember, the Labour Party used to be dominant by far in terms of Israeli politics. Now it's a very fringe party. Either way, it's been welcomed. And we've got to work out why, if you take a piece of claimed territory as far as Zionism is concerned, why these people are turning around to Donald Trump when he talks about America taking over, building some sort of Riviera resort. Why are they welcoming it? Imagine the situation in Britain that Donald Trump came along and said, well, we're going to take over the Isle of Man or somewhere else, the Isle of Skye or wherever you happen to fancy. You know the reaction, just like in Greenland, just like in Denmark, just like in Canada, just like in Panama, when Donald Trump says, well, we're going to take over this bit of real estate. We're going to make Canada into the 51st state. We're going to turn Greenland into an American protectorate. What's the response? The response is no way are we going to have this. So how comes in Israel we've actually had a welcome? And that is, of course, because they know, I know, you know, that isn't really what the proposal is. The proposal, and this is why it's being welcomed in Israel, is to get rid of the Palestinian people. And if you look at the Israeli media, and I'm talking about the Zionist media, so from Labour on the left of Zionism right over to the far right, what you can read and what you've been able to read for years and years now is this idea of a demographic time bomb in Israel, right? And, right, getting rid of the Palestinians. Remember, this is how the Israeli state was formed, the Nakba. So the idea of a second Nakba is now on the agenda. It's now being readied. It's being legitimized by the global hegemon. That's why we shouldn't just dismiss this plan as mad. It's real, and that's why it's being welcomed in Israel. And note this, what we've had is the Minister of Defense giving instructions to the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, to prepare a plan for the voluntary exodus of the Gazan population. I take the word voluntary as a euphemism for forced. I take it either as a euphemism for starving people, or letting people die, or letting people, what's the word, face Israeli bayonets as they're boarded on ships or planes or forced over borders. That's how I take it. And so the Israeli Defense Force is being given plans to actually deport, as I say, voluntarily. Is it 1 million, 1.5 million Gazans to somewhere I'd never heard of before? And I had to look it up. I just thought, where's this? It's somewhere called Puntland. I don't know if anyone else has heard. I say anyone else. I had to look it up last night. Puntland sounded a bit British. You know, sort of, where's Puntland? Is it, you know, is it somewhere that was buried under the North Sea? Is it somewhere that used to be on Doggerland? No, apparently it's an autonomous part of Somalia. And apparently, again, this is me doing last minute research, apparently it's a paradise for pirates. So this is sort of a buccaneer coast where pirates, you know, sally out and raid shipping, you know, take hostages, extract, you know, price, you know, the price of someone's head, and all the rest of it. And so, yeah, one idea is that people will voluntarily move to Somalia. My guess, for what it's worth, who knows, is there's a possibility of either a deal being done or simply a fait, you know, a fait accompli, pushing people over the border into Jordan, or pushing people over the border into Egypt. We don't know, but the point is here that Donald Trump has legitimized the idea of mass exodus, something that, of course, you know, as I said, is freely discussed in the Israeli media. And now it looks like it's just about to happen. Now, whether it happens in the next few weeks or next few months, I don't know, but I fear it's going to happen. And of course, we've got, from liberal opinion, this is outrageous. This is simply against the law. We can't allow it. Well, what's happening now with Trump too is the post-World War II international order is being shredded. And so what was considered, you know, completely mad yesterday is becoming, how should we put it, a proposal today. It can become common sense tomorrow. So what do we have in terms of the International Criminal Court? Of course, we have Israel facing prosecution. What has Trump done in relationship to the ICC? He's sanctioned the ICC. So Donald Trump says, we're going to take over the Panama Canal. And people say, well, that's against international law. He says, I don't care about international law. He talks about taking over Greenland. He says, I don't care about international law. I have to say that when it comes to Canada, it's a different kettle of fish. We're not dealing with, what was it, 57,000 people in the whole of Greenland. I don't know how many people live in the canal zone in Panama. But when we look at Canada, what's there, 40 million people? I don't know of any political party yet in Canada that's for unity. But someone reminded me earlier today of England's, what was it called? Rough or um, violent courtship of Scotland. And so what you had, before the union of not the crowns, but the parliaments between England and Scotland, is England using its overwhelming commercial economic advantage basically to sabotage Scotland. And the most, how should I put it, outrageous example of that, famous example, is this Darien colony that Scotland was independently establishing. So I think this was actually Panama. And so you had Scottish troops, Scottish ships, and they were going to become an independent colonial power. Britain didn't want that, and it sabotaged it. And you had the crash of the Darien Company. And what the English were able to do is saying, look, if you vote in the parliament, remember, not universal suffrage, if the elite in parliament, if the representatives of the elite in parliament vote for the unity of the parliaments, we'll bail you out. Well, having put them in the shit, they do the generous thing and would give them compensation. We also know, of course, of the role of bribery and other such techniques. Why can't the United States do something like that? Well, I think the answer is it can. And that's the point. And so, yes, those of us that have been brought up, like me, in the post-World War II international order, in a country like Britain, in Western Europe, in North America, we look at this and we go, this is just impossible. Well, I remember saying the same thing when it came to mass unemployment. For me as a young person, the idea of unemployment under this system, I was told this is impossible. There will be no return to the 1930s. And unemployment went up, what was it, to 250,000. And I was told, not just by people in the Communist Party, but others out there in society, if that happened, there'll be a revolution. It went up to 250,000, went up to 500,000, went up to 1 million, went up to 3 million. There's been no revolution. I can remember, it's there in my brain, the broadcast of Kathy Come Home. There's someone homeless in Britain. It was Ken Loach's film. I think it was a half-hour broadcast. This was a national scandal. But now if anyone told me that there's homelessness in London, I just, well, what do you want me to do? I shrug my shoulders and go, yes, well, come outside my front door. Walk down Tottenham Court Road, go anywhere in London, you'll find homeless people. We've become used to it. It's become the norm. So what was crazy, what was mad, in my youth is now, doesn't even pass a comment. And so precisely, American expansionism. Well, America did take over the Americas from shore to shore. That meant taking over either through purchase or genocide or ethnic cleansing Indian lands, but it also meant taking over Mexican land. It meant taking over French land. It took Russian land, that was Alaska. Why can't it expand? Why can't it take over the Panama Canal again? Why can't it take over Greenland? Why can't it go in for a rough courtship of Canada, establish the Conservative Party in Canada through bribery, through corruption, through all sorts of inducements to become the pro-unity party in the name of a greater America. Don't just make America great again, make it even greater. Why is that impossible? Precisely, I think it is possible. So here you are, you have Keir Starmer looking at this Gaza plan and saying, well, we are committed to a two-state solution. How are you going to deliver it, Sir Keir? when you've got a situation of where the Palestinians are being ethnically cleansed. Already 10% of the population of Gaza, presumably because of they're injured or they've got the money or they've got the family connections, have left. And the plan is Trump's plan, the plan of the Israeli government is to get rid of at least 1 million, maybe 1.5 million others, and rebuild Gaza as a Jewish enclave that will be joined with Israel, a greater Israel. All one needs to do is to look at what is going on the West Bank now as well. It's being hotted up precisely for the same sort of treatment. We all expected it to be the other way around. So historical accident, that was October the 7th. But the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians, that's gone hand in hand with Israeli colonialism. Remember, it's not South African colonialism. If we wanted to draw an analogy, it's closer to the United States form of colonialism on the continent of the United States. It's closer to Australian colonialism. Get rid of the native people. We don't need them to exploit. They are surplus to requirement. They must go. That is Israeli colonialism. And of course, Keir Starmer isn't going to say that, is he? We've just had the Labour Party purged on the basis of people like myself, Stan Keeble, Moshe Machover, and hundreds and thousands of others who've said Israel is a racist endeavor. Israel is an apartheid state. Israel is pre-programmed, right, for genocide. If you say that in the Labour Party, you get expelled. But that is the truth. And that is something that we need to fight for, to establish our right to say that and say it out loud. But of course, what we need is the alternative. And the alternative, that many people will clutch to is, of course, the old order, the post-45 order. So we've got to go back to the spirit of 45, or the spirit of international rules and all the rest of it. As I said, I think we are leaving that behind. And what is being re-established is might is right. Israel is mighty in the Middle East, but it's mighty because it's backed by the global hegemon, the United States. And of course, the United States is in a position at the moment of where there's no viable alternative. But I would say that precisely under these circumstances, we ought to look at the possibility of challenges to the United States' hegemony. The problem is that we, the left, don't want to line up with an alternative hegemon, i.e. China, stroke Russia, stroke Iran. That would be like us lining up in 1914 with Germany, with the Ottoman Empire, with Austria-Hungary. It would merely be joining another capitalist bloc. That isn't working class politics. No, we actually need to constitute the working class globally as a global power in its own right, a global power that can come to power precisely in Europe, in the United States. Tony Cliff, I don't know whether he originated this slogan or whether he borrowed it, but it's fundamentally correct. And he said that the key to the liberation of Palestine, the key to the liberation of Palestine lies in Cairo. Now, he wasn't talking about the city. He wasn't simply talking about Egypt, the most populous Arab country. He was talking about the working class, the masses. That's the key to the liberation of Palestine, something that's only viable if that movement was led by the working class and had the aim of socialism for the reasons Moshe Machover has outlined. Because we want the solution in Palestine to be as peaceful as possible. We want things to be as voluntary, as civilized as possible. And that precisely becomes possible if we've got a working class in the Arab world that forges its own unity and can offer the Jewish Hebrew population in Israel status of joining the ruling class, as opposed to what comrades in the SWP do, for example, and that is offer them the possibility of becoming an oppressed section of the population under a Palestinian capitalism. So this isn't crazy. In other words, that's my conclusion from looking at these proposals. And just to sort of back up that, I just wanted to look at a rally recently in Madrid, and this was "Make Europe Great Again." This was staged under the banner of Vox in Spain, far right party, but it also had featured in terms of speakers. Let me get them all. It had Marine Le Pen. It had Viktor Orban, Prime Minister of Hungary, Geert Wilders from the Netherlands, and it also had Matteo Salvini, the Deputy Prime Minister of Italy. And Salvini is quoted in his speech saying something I have just been saying. Yesterday, we were heretics. Today, we are mainstream. I don't think that's true. So if I paraphrase him, if I rephrase it, I think that would be more accurate. Today, we are heretic. Tomorrow, we will be mainstream. And even then, when you've got the Deputy Prime Minister and when you've got the Prime Minister of Hungary, when you've got the leader of National Rally, when you've got Geert Wilders, hey, maybe my correction ain't accurate. But the point is there that the tide is going to the right, and it's going hard right. What we thought was heretic, what we thought was unthinkable for these people yesterday is what they are saying today and what they are going to do tomorrow. So at this rally, they were talking about the reconquest of Spain. This is El Cid. This is the expulsion of the Moors, the Muslims in Spain. Remember, you had the domination of southern Spain, I think going into France, but southern Spain was a Moorish civilization. And of course, what happened hand in hand with the expulsion of the Moors was also the expulsion of the Jews in Spain. But if we look at it today, this is also what's on the agenda, the expulsion of Muslims in Europe, not just putting up, borders and keeping people out. It's also about getting rid of people. That is what is on the agenda of the far right. Now, the reports I read in the more intelligent sections of the press on this one do show the problems. And that is, none of them at this rally raised up Trump's demand for Europe to start spending 5% in terms of arms expenditure. Roughly speaking, at the moment, European countries, with this or that exception, spend roughly 2%. So we're talking about something more than double. We're not talking about the budget, we're talking about GDP here. So he wants defense, arms spending to go up from 2% of gross national product to 5%. So they don't want to talk about that because once you start talking about guns, what about the butter? And they want to tell European voters, you can have both. So they don't want to explore that question. They keep quiet about it. They also keep quiet about the possibility, the distinct, surely likelihood of Trump imposing tariffs on EU countries. Maybe the 25% tariffs that we saw imposed on Canada and Mexico, maybe the 10% tariffs that were imposed on China, but they don't want to talk about that either. Now, we've had discussions, and it's worthwhile thinking about what is the nature of these right-wing parties. My fellow panel speaker for tonight, Mike, argues that these parties should fundamentally be understood as extensions of American power, particularly, the right in America. So National Rally, Wilders Party, the Brotherhood in Italy, the Freedom Party in Austria. Basically, what Trump is establishing is direct relationships with these countries. And these countries are radically subordinated to the United States. He might be right, but I just have this suspicion that there's also the possibility, at least, that such parties precisely will have the ambition not just to make Germany great, but precisely to make Europe great again. Now, I don't think the EU has got a hope in hell of doing that. It's a Ruritanian, higgledy-piggledy constitution that paralyzes it, that makes it incapable of doing anything. It runs on consensus. So it's incapable of doing anything serious. On the other hand, a Franco-German bloc with Marine Le Pen as president, with the leader of AfD as the chancellor in Germany, heading an AfD-dominated coalition, maybe then Europe can be made great again. I wouldn't dismiss that possibility, or the possibility. Again, this is pure speculation, but it's speculation of the sort that we need at the moment, that such a bloc might align itself with Russia in order to counter the United States. I think that we're in that sort of territory, that what we took for granted yesterday, NATO, American domination of Europe through the EU, NATO, and all the rest of it, all of that is being thrown in the air. And therefore, we should expect the sort of realignments that international imperialism went through in the run-up to World War I. So, for example, Britain and France became allies. We shake our shoulders at that now. But these were the old enemies. And we also then had France bringing on board Tsarist Russia, an outrage for Republican opinion in France, even an outrage as far as, democratic opinion would have been concerned in Britain. We also had Britain and Russia reconciled, the rivals, for southern Asia, Persia, which was an area of dispute between the British Empire and Russia. All of that was settled, and the enemy became Germany. Remember our royal family, Queen Victoria. Who did she marry? Albert, who was German. What was their family origins? Hanover. Who did they marry their daughters and sons off to? Either Russia or Germany. Either way, I think we're going through at least the possibility of such realignment. So yes, things move to the right, and things will move to the right, I think, producing all sorts of potential unexpected alignments in terms of international capitalism. Having mentioned tariffs, of course, as I thought, again, don't want to say, well, it's all done and settled. But as I was saying last week, if you look at the 25% tariffs that Trump imposed on Canada, 25% tariffs on Mexico, they soon went. They were suspended for a month. Mexico has moved 10,000 National Guard members up to the border. Canada, I presume, is still in negotiations. Either way, you would expect Trump to exact concessions off Mexico, off Canada. I don't think that that's going to happen with China. Precisely 25% from trading partners that are on your borders. That's not really going to happen. That would be like shooting yourself in the foot. I know that tariffs on Chinese goods will add to inflation in the United States, but my own assessment, for what it's worth, take it for whatever you want to, is that it will be the United States that benefits from this trade war. That's my assessment. I could be wrong, but I don't take the sort of left talk or the liberal talk that this is all crazy. This is the United States acting in an irrational fashion. I don't take that seriously. I think the United States is acting in a rational fashion, but the presentation, is put over as impetuous. But we need to separate. This is my argument. We need to separate Trump and the drama and the theater, the performance from the underlying reality of the changing nature of the world order. Okay. So I think I've covered that. Okay, just last few minutes. Time we got 33. So yeah, I'll aim to wrap up in a couple of minutes. And then I presume that we're all okay for discussing this political report. And then Mike, after that, does his report. I think that's the best way of handling things. Okay, so I'm just going to very briefly turn to Ukraine. We have the announcement of a new Ukrainian offensive. This is not on the Eastern Front in Donbass. This is on the Eastern Front in Kursk, i.e. on Russian territory. And I think it's worthwhile reminding some left-wing armchair generals when that offensive first happened. I have to say my own reaction was, bloody hell, this is a really bold, daring move. I rated its chances of success high. Not that the aim was to march to Moscow, but the aim was to seize Russian territory, I guessed, as some sort of bargaining chip down the road. Either way, yes, Ukraine has lost territory that initially gained, but it's kept hold of at least 40% of the territory that it gained. So it's got its bargaining chip, and it's moving now to extend that territorial hold on Russia. Now, we were told at the time this was a terribly stupid move by Zelensky because it diverted elite troops from the Donbass to Russia. Indeed, that's true. But you don't leave elite troops dug in Kursk. You put in ordinary troops. You withdraw the tanks. You don't need tanks anymore in Kursk, except now maybe if you're on the offensive. Either way, this was a bold move, and it gives Zelensky something to bargain with. Now, he claims that this particular Kursk operation was kept dead secret. I'm sure that's right. I've read reports that troops were taken to the border. They didn't know where they were being taken. They knew they'd be fighting Russians, but they didn't know they would be fighting Russians on Russian territory. I believe that. They didn't want to leak. But the idea, which is the Zelensky line, that they also kept it from the American high command, they kept it from Joe Biden. You must be kidding. Do you think we were born yesterday? Do you seriously imagine that Joe Biden wasn't told that Ukraine was going to attack Russian territory? Now, it's one thing having pro-Ukrainian Russian irregulars go in for some cross-border raid. It's an entirely other thing for Ukrainian troops, backed, remember, by these rocket launchers that you didn't have permission to use on Russian territory involved. They were involved in terms of attacking bridges to stop Russian reinforcements. The idea that Joe Biden didn't know anything about it is, sorry, not credible. It's a lie. Okay, we understand why the lie is there, but America would have been deeply involved, and it certainly would have been informed of the operation in advance. We're told also, when it comes to Ukraine, a couple of other things. F-16s are arriving. Mirages, these are French planes, are arriving. It will make no difference when it comes to the Eastern Front, Donbass. These planes might play a marginal role in terms of shooting down drones over Odessa or over Kiev. The Mirages were designed for dogfights. This is all 20th century air warfare that's now been rendered obsolete. There is not going to be dogfights with Russian MiGs and F-16s and French Mirages. That, as I say, is yesterday's warfare. So this is about politics. It's about display. It has no significance when it actually comes to the war itself. And again, just to come in with one last footnote on this, the withdrawal, I would have thought temporary withdrawal of North Korean, apparently fake forces. This is what we were told by the pro-North Korean and some people on the left, that this is all fake. Come on, comrades. What is remarkable, actually, in terms of the reports of these troops, of course, they're elite troops. These are not just, cannon fodder. They might have been used as cannon fodder, perhaps, but their remarkable courage, their fanaticism, and also their military skill. Now, okay, that obviously needs rehoning, but these apparently were soldiers who, on the battlefield were capable of getting their rifles and shooting down a drone overhead, while they're out in the open. And if they were in danger of being captured, the story is they get a grenade out and they kill themselves. So my understanding is less than a handful of North Korean soldiers have been captured. They did attempt suicide. Either way, I think they will be back, but will they make a decisive difference on the battlefield? Clearly not. That what we're dealing with here on the battlefield is a war of attrition between, on the one side, NATO, America, on the other side, Russia. But what we now have, of course, is the main supplier of Ukraine, Donald Trump, saying, I want peace. And he is prepared, we know, to trade land for peace, Ukrainian land for peace, as well as his rare earths. That, I think, will happen. It will happen de facto, or it will be some sort of treaty, and Europe will have to lump it. But again, I've just said that Europe might realign. So we don't know. All of these things are possible. And lastly, I want to end uncharacteristically for me. I do my best, but uncharacteristic. I normally sort of finish talking and go, God, you did leave everyone depressed, after your political report. I don't mean to do that. I'm just trying to be realistic. Either way, here's a happy story. It got my tail wagging anyway. This is a Channel 4 report. I don't know if anyone else has seen it. Channel 4 commissioned a survey of Generation Z. I didn't really know who Generation Z was. I sort of heard of it. I've heard of Generation X and all that sort of stuff. But Generation Z is apparently people aged between 13 and 27. Now, depending on which media outlet you read, either it makes dreadful reading that these people are in favor of capital punishment for sex offenders, Also, they're in favour. I'm not saying in favour, a big block of them. I would want to say 50%, but there's a big block that when they're asked, do you think the army could make a better job of things than professional politicians? They answer, at least a big block answers, yeah. Well, sort of, I can imagine myself confronted with such a question and looking at Keir Starmer or the Tory front bench going, yeah, maybe. It's not such an outlandish suggestion. So either it's been reported in the mainstream press, like by The Guardian, as a shock horror. What a horrible generation we've got coming up. But no, with me, and I got this, I have to say, I do read The Socialist every week, the paper of the Socialist Party in England and Wales. I got it off their paper and then looked up the story. And yeah, what they run with is what I'm running with. And hey, 47% of 13 to 27-year-olds who were surveyed said, in the entire way our society is organized must be radically changed through a revolution. 47%. Now, I'm taking it that when that generation is talking about revolution, they talk about it in exactly the same way as Generation Me talked about revolution, i.e., they are thinking about China, they're thinking about Russia, they're thinking about the left. I don't think they're thinking about Mussolini's march on Rome. I don't think they're thinking about Adolf Hitler's Nazi revolution. I don't think they're thinking about MAGA. I think that's left. Now that will be with all sorts of confusion. I'm not saying that these people are ripe for recruitment or they're just waiting for the call. But it does tell you that in terms of radical discontent, that it isn't just orientated to the right. The problem is at the moment, it only can find political expression on the right with reform, with Alternative for Germany, with National Rally, with the Freedom Party. On the left, what we have is the 57 varieties of sects. What we have is the attempt by Corbyn to rerun the spirit of 45, a hopeless project that you cannot even legitimately call reformist. So I don't think that's what 47% of 13 to 27-year-olds are looking to. They're looking for radical change, a change of the system. And that is something we should take heart from. And precisely, I think it gives hope to the second part of this political report, which will be given later by Comrade McNair, reporting back on various events over